We live in a strange old house, a relic of the past, reputed to be haunted, and indeed, weird noises keep us awake at night. The children play happily enough in the spacious wooded grounds, regardless of ghostly visits. But strange and amazing events begin to occur. Perhaps it was not really bad before the season of the storms, but then came the stormy weather. The children become stiff from lack of sleep, and even their play seems grotesque. One night when Father is away, during dinner we are startled by the harsh guttural noise in the west wing of the mansion. We tell Mother we cannot stand it any longer. And she says, "Why don't you try to solve the mystery?" So we get together and arrange areas of search, determined to run the ghost to earth. But our first run is a fiasco. The night wears on, and I become exhausted and sink down on the couch, only to find myself in the clutches of maddening dreams. The faces of my friends seem to dance before my eyes. In my nightmare, I seem to rise and go forward to meet my ancestors long departed and to dance with them. Then to see the ancients dine. Sir Roderick, my great-great-great-great-grandfather, then a young man, tells of the crime he committed to gain his fortune, and the butler listening has his secret and boasts he has him in his power. But Sir Roderick is cut to the quick, rises in wrath, and oh! Attracted by the noise just outside the window, there in the light we see it. The ghost!
My father, Arnold Lucas Bennett, born in 1908 in Toowoomba, Queensland. His childhood was dominated by his mother, Celia Juliana Lucas. She was the personification of strong, calm virtue and the ideal against whom he judged every woman, especially his daughters. He idolized her, as did his father, George Bennett, who came from a long line of farmers, small businessmen and Methodist ministers. He was a barrister and a Methodist. He was father to 5 girls and 3 boys, of whom I am the youngest. My mother, Nancy Margaret Mellor, married my father on her 21st birthday. He was 15 years older and had 4 children already. She was gentle and strong, and her passion was for my father. This is me, born 2 weeks before my father's 49th birthday in 1957, the last of his 8 children. Dear Father, how do I begin? I am faced with the illusions of memory, and there's no dialogue with the dead. Who are you, Dad? And who am I in this labyrinth of being father and daughter? Every night of my childhood, I said my prayers and ended with, God bless Mummy and Daddy, and God bless Rill, Roz, Don, Doug, Gail, Paul, Susan, and me. This list represented order in the world dominated by my father. He was our provider. His word was law, his power absolute. Like an omnipotent God, all things came from him. He was our Father. His authority seemed to extend beyond the family, and this amplified my vision of his strength. He operated with ease in the world and seemed to stand guard over not only his family, but knowledge. There were secrets and taboos, an edifice of prohibition. He didn't smoke or drink or gamble, and his strongest abuse was bally cow. Life was a series of routines, and Sunday was the worst day of the week. Each new year, I would check what day Christmas fell on. If it were a Sunday, it meant we didn't have to go to church twice in 1 week, and the whole year felt better. We would have a cooked breakfast. Mum often made tripe or fried brains for this meal. Then off to church and Sunday school, where Dad was superintendent. Lunch would be the Sunday roast, and in the afternoon, the children would play. But there were no parties and no dancing. But almost every Sunday evening after tea, we'd watch movies. We saw ourselves growing up, laughing at fashion changes and private jokes, and above all, had Dad's image of family life reinforced. On holidays, he would gather us together to be in his movies. We'd stage departures, so he could film the farewells and the car pulling away. We acted out our own lives for the sake of his movies. The important thing was to be together and feel the same way about the world. The stories he wrote for us to act in all had the theme of family alliance in the face of an outside threat. United, we could laugh at the ghosts, at the dark corners of life, at pain, even at death. His world image was clearly defined in terms of good or evil. Good meant piety, a virtuous family life, good clean fun, as he would say. Evil meant heathenism, hedonism, and even innocent vices. Around his family, he built an invisible but impassable barrier. I found it hard to believe people lived in the houses he didn't take us into. Just to walk in Elizabeth Street, where the left-wing bookshops were, thrilled me with a sense of decadence. I once went to buy pastries for a high school French class and stood transfixed at the window, staring at marzipan and feeling wicked. Methodists don't eat marzipan. My father never ate it. He ate good plain food, dinner at 6 every night, each of us in our place around the table, saying grace and taking turns to do the Bible reading, night after night. The only time I saw you cry was when you talked to me about the death of your first wife, Marjorie. We sat surrounded by your 3,000 leather-bound law books. You told me how hurt you'd been when she died. You wept. Father, how much sorrow did you carry? By being the director of our lives, did you hope to prevent our own tragedies? Whatever was out of your control was dangerous. But you couldn't dictate what happened inside my head or my body. In me there was a realm your authority could not put in order. If I had been a boy, I would have gone on the boys-only excursions and found out what they talked about out there in the bush. Did they plan heroic adventures? Did they wonder about love and what the future would hold? At an age when I wanted sacred ritual, I was given wholesome family habits. If I'd been able to say, I want life to have meaning, would it have made any difference? Or would I have been offered again God the Father? What does God the Father know about the buttoned breasts and warm belly rushes of a young girl? Where were the sacred cups, the wine like blood blessed by a deity too terrible or too beautiful to look upon? I wanted sex or God or both. But sex was forbidden, and God was good, was church, where I sat each week looking at the back of the man in front of me, whose neck had skin like a chicken, plucked and puckered and old. The first time I tried to break away, I walked out at night and pretended I could keep going, not go back ever. Change my name, my identity, invent a new past to satisfy my hunger for the exotic. I made up stories, talked to myself with an accent. I acted out scenes in my mind in which I was in control. I was you, Father. I gave myself the power I felt you had. But I was a woman, and your women could be educated. We could develop skills, then get married, have the babies, and that's when our real lives begin. This pattern of truncated development insidiously wormed its way into my psyche, infected my confidence, enraged me with frustration at unfinished sentences, jobs, love affairs. The flow of sex halted as the cycle returns to, I'm not really here, my real life is elsewhere, looking for the time, the place, the person, the activity to consume and fulfill me. Rejecting marriage as the answer, but still searching for the external motivator to replace the husband I had been taught I was destined for. You taught me that, with your comments on childbearing hips and your unquestioned assumptions on the nature of women, your acceptance of the status quo. Dad, it was not acceptable. Repressing anger for the sake of feminine grace is not acceptable. Merely to hold an opinion contrary to yours was to cross a battle line, and I felt your thoughts would hurt me. Even inside my own head, I would whisper. When I was 16, at home in my bedroom, I would light a dish of perfume and silently watch the blue flame skim over the liquid until it snuffed out, leaving me in the dark, dreaming. I went to art school at night, and sometimes my friend and I skipped classes and rode a lift up and down an empty 9-story building, screaming, our voices echoing off the walls and off each other, mouths open, throats open, bodies tense. There was a bag of arsenic under our house when I was 10 or so, used for killing prickly pear, I guess, and I fantasized for months of murdering you. And when you died 15 years later, I was guilty. I killed you by wanting you dead, by endlessly rejecting your authority, by throwing in your face every act of rebellion, every statement of identity that marked me as not of you, Sir Arnold Bennett QC, slightly eccentric for your fanatical stand on temperance. And I, at 19, a junkie and a topless waitress in a strip club. I took drinks upstairs to the brothel and got stoned every time I'd visit you. I couldn't be like you, so the assumptions that you held, that you gave me, I tore and burned and tossed away. And when you died, I thought it was because I'd tossed you away. I am guilty of killing you by not being what you wanted me to be. But Father, I was affirming your assumptions by stepping into the realm of violence and self-abuse. This was the other side of your map. To find my own vision, I had to reject yours and test myself to find out what I was made of. I came back to your house after what felt like a lifetime. I had travelled to places, felt and done things you never told me about. But you were seeing only your daughter, nice little woman, come home at last. You were talking to some other self of mine, some alternative over my shoulder. So I sat down to afternoon tea with you and told you some things about my life. I have loved women, I told you. I have taken drugs. What I didn't say was, out of love, you tried to prevent my pain, but your safety is like suffocation. I didn't tell you that I once bit a hunk off a man's tongue in a fight to stop him raping me. Nor did I tell you that I had heard the clear, high song of air through the feathers of a condor. I couldn't speak to you of these things, as I was too far away already, and could only cast off. Then just as I was ready to face you again, all grown up, you died. So here I am, Dad, talking to the air, writing and rewriting the story of my life with you. There were months of crying. There were flashes of anger at you not being here when I needed you, as if your death broke a promise. I wanted to stroke the short white hairs on your temple and feel you jerk your head away, not liking my hand on your face. I wanted you to tell me how to get through the loss I was feeling, of you and of my own childhood. I wanted to say, Father, I love you. My eyes still seek out old men in crowds, and every death reminds me of yours. I look at these pictures of my father in 1937. He was 29. I don't recognize him. There's only a young man I never knew.